Greetings from sunny Danville, Virginia, and the beautiful racetrack known as Virginia International Raceway. My name is Ryan Marine. Calvin Fish joins me in the booth. Amanda Busick, you'll be hearing from her shortly down in the pit lane as we prepare for the TC America Championship powered by Skip Barber Racing School. Round 5 of the season, race 1 of the weekend here at VIR. 3 classes, Calvin, in TC America, TCX, TC, and TCA, and no shortage of storylines throughout this field, no matter which class you choose to focus on.
Yeah, talking about the top class, TCX, obviously dominated by the BMWs. Jacob Ruder's on a roll. He's won 4 straight, going for a 5th straight here today. Starts from the pole. Steve Strymer didn't make the first rounds of the championship, Sonoma, but came back nicely at rounds 3 and 4 at Coda. So he's done a really nice job. But Chris Walsh, U.S. bobsled athlete, is 3rd on the grid, so it'll be interesting to see how he can do here today.
Yep, series debut for Chris. AOA Racing, the team. One of the great stories. He'll be joined in that second row by Olivia Askew, who makes a return to the championship. We'll go back to the storylines in a second, but first, Calvin, take us through this Virginia International Raceway, a shade over 5 kilometers or 3.27 miles, whichever you would prefer.
It's a real beauty in terms of the nature and certainly the challenges that it creates for all of the drivers in our field here today. The 3 classes have to work well together, different speeds. Obviously, they'll be separated at the starts and any restarts by 2 different safety cars out there. But you look at Sector 1, very technical, high-speed start to it down the front straightaway in a very tight turn 1. Then it starts to flow a little bit. Really need the car to work well over the curve through that sector. Then Sector 2 is the one I love here. Up through the high-speed S's, climbing all of the time. Speeds really tap out right before you slow it down for the final couple of corners. Through Oak Tree, which is that tight right-hander to the screen right. Along Madison Avenue, where straightaway speed will certainly be important. And then really the prime overtaking opportunities into that green zone. Sector 3 to start the roller coaster ride to finish the lap.
It is a thrilling ride around this Virginia International Raceway circuit, no question about that. There you see the number 104, Chris Walsh, driving that car with a great paint scheme on that machine, paying homage to the military. Chris, of course, with military connection as well. Just a fantastic combination as here this weekend at VIR. So much is being done to honor members of the military. You mentioned TCX. That is the top class, 6 cars strong in the class's debut season. Well into double-digit car counts as far as the TC class is concerned, and it was Austin Smith from Auto Technic Racing able to take the pole, did so despite a crash in practice yesterday. That car had to be repaired, but he will roll off first in TC. However, a lot of eyes will be on the 3rd place starting car in TC, Mark Pombo, in the second weekend for the new TC Spec Mini. But in many ways, Calvin, this team is treating this as if it was a debut weekend here at VIR because of limited running the first time out, really testing the car basically in race trim there at Coda. More on that story and others in a moment. But first, down to pit lane and welcome in Amanda Busick.
Well, Ryan, you mentioned that it's the professional debut for Chris Walsh. Well, they have been in conversation for a while of joining SRO America, but he wanted to wait for this race specifically. Chris is a major in the Air Force in eastern North Carolina, so he wanted VIR to be his professional debut, but there's a more special story that goes along with that. His dad is a veteran, and for the salute to service here at VIR, his dad is actually going to wave the green flag as his son makes his professional debut here in TCX.
That is a fantastic story. Thank you very much. Love the paint scheme on that car. Very reminiscent of the Flying Tigers of World War II fame and the P-40 Warhawk. Great-looking car. Also a great-looking car. This is the new Garagistic team. 2 cars on the grid. We'll talk more about them, but look how brightly colored these are. They said they're just a fun-loving group. They like memes, so they threw all the memes they could think of on each of their 2 race cars. We'll have no trouble picking out Matthew Ibrahim driving this car in his debut, and Chris Valdez making his return to the championship.
Very cool. Great to see some new cars in our series, and they're certainly making a splash with the impression there with the car's livery.
Yep, DRS also part of the team running those cars. That is Chris Valdez's company. Great story there. More on them as we go throughout the broadcast. We talked to them about TC. How about TCA? A Tech Sport Racing sweep of the front row on home soil.
Yeah, those rear-wheel drive Toyotas certainly showed the way in qualifying. We'll have to wait and see which stretches out in this 40-minute event. All front-wheel drives behind them, spread between the Hyundais, the Hondas, the Minis. So I think they got the work cut out, but so far so good for Tech Sport Racing.
Especially so for young Michael Carter, who makes his series debut this weekend, coming out of MX5 Cup competition. Had previously raced in club racing and Spec Miata competition, including finishing second at the SCCA runoffs back in 2016. Winner of the Mazda Road to 24 shootout that's helped propel his career into sports cars. And he'll share the front row with Canadian PJ Gronke, a great story in its own right, because PJ told me they've had all kinds of issues. They've had to swap out an engine since they've been here this weekend. Luckily, the Tech Sport Racing shop is on premises at VIR, and he said, no need to worry about that, Ryan. We've got a wall full of engines. That's PJ for you. He's about as optimistic as they come.
Yeah, and right behind him is our championship leader, Caleb Bacon, coming off a sweep of wins at COTA. So he's got a lot of confidence aboard that Hyundai Velociter Turbo. So he'll start third. And young Jose Blanco, he's got experience here in Formula 4 competition. Look for that young man to make an impression here today as well.
His team owner, Victor Gonzalez, not in the driver's seat this weekend. We expect he'll make a return to the cockpit starting at Road America, but he is awfully high on his young charge. Fellow Puerto Rican has really big expectations for him, and feels like as he makes that transition out of single-seaters into touring cars, it's a big transition, especially going into a front-wheel drive car, and he's just starting to wrap his head around it. Had a great run to a podium in one of the races at Circuit of the Americas, did Jose Blanco, and might be one to keep an eye on in the second half of the season, much in the same way we saw last year's TCA champion Kevin Boehm hit that halfway mark, suddenly got to grips with his car. He went to the front and ended up winning that championship, graduating to TC, and not having the smoothest of weekends, quite frankly, Calvin.
No, a championship leader. He's had a couple of wins so far this weekend, one at Sonoma and one in COTA, but starts this race down in 7th, so this is a very low starting position for Kevin Boehm. He had a strut issue yesterday that collapsed on him. Saw him working late last night on the car, on the setup pad, so they're pretty diligent. I'm sure the car will be in great shape here today, and he's certainly shown the poise and patience to make his way from a deep starting position up towards the front and potential podium here before the checkered flag will fly today, I feel.
And a drive through the field would be a special one for Kevin Boehm at this venue. This was the first place he ever attended a professional race. Decided, I want to be a race car driver in that moment. Elected to go to college to pursue engineering in pursuit of that dream, and that's exactly what's played out. A TCA champion a year ago. Points leader in TC this season, but one of the many storylines to watch as he's mired fairly deep in the field. And Calvin, you made mention to the fact we do have multiple safety cars for this event, at least on this initial start. Any subsequent restarts, I was told they'll have a single pace car. But in addition to the Lamborghini Urus, we've got a really good-looking Toyota Supra dressed up in Skip Barber Racing School colors. That's fitting for sure. And what that will do is create a better gap between the classes at the start of this race. We've seen in previous races, especially on cold tires, the front part of the TC field already mixing it up with the back of the TCX field. The race directors decided, you know what, we'd really rather there be a bit more separation at the start of this race for a cleaner start. That's why they go to the two safety cars, at least for this weekend.
Yeah, I think it's a smart move. There is that overlap. There's an overlap in terms of the equipment, also the overlap in terms of the experience between the tail end of one class and the front end of the field in the other class. So I think it makes total sense. Let everyone settle in, get into a rhythm, and let those lap times develop.
Sitting in the drivers' meeting for the TC America Series earlier in the weekend, each series has a set of cones on the front straightaway that delineate the start zone, where you can go when the green flag is displayed if you are the pole sitter. For TC America, they elected to use that for their restart zone as well. So that's going to be slightly different than what the other series have been doing here this weekend under the SRO umbrella. So one thing to take a look at. But it's worth noting, too, 3 separate green flags for our 3 classes. That hasn't been the case. It had only been 2 previously. So a few little tweaks to the sporting regs this weekend just to ensure that everybody has as clean of a start to their race as possible.
Well, it's all about a learning process, and I think the championship learns as well, and we're just trying to eliminate some of the incidents that can happen with this crossover with 3 classes running together. So it's is evolving, and I think we'll see what happens here today. And it's also tricky here at VIR because that front straightaway is kind of bending. So from the starter stand, you can't really see the full field until they pick their head around the corner there.
Yep, and that definitely was part of the discussion in those drivers' meetings. You see the starting grid up on the screen. Take a look for your favorite driver as they weave their way down Madison Avenue. That's what we call the long back straightaway out of the Oak Tree corner and down towards the roller coaster here at VIR. 2 formation laps this weekend. Typically in TC America, we see a single formation lap, but the emphasis is on trying to ensure the drivers can get their tires up to the appropriate temperature, appropriate pressures as much as possible prior to the start. But because of the time spent to have an extra formation lap, the discussion was we're going to be going at a pretty decent clip, and they might take the green flag at a higher rate of speed than on a normal race weekend.
Yeah, and I think that's okay. I mean, I think it allows the field to spread out a little bit coming across the line rather than this big stack up and seeing if anyone gets the jump. So, again, it's evolving. They're tweaking on the rules, tweaking on the procedures, and let's hopefully have a good, clean start here today. There's that second pace car leading the rest of the field.
A couple others to keep an eye on. Mentioned Mark Pombo in the Mini starting in third in TC. What a great story there. Typically, Louis Pericarpi, who oversees the LAP Motorsports team that runs both the Mini program as well as the LA Honda World program that has cars in multiple classes. He was here earlier in the weekend, but he had to head back home to just outside of Indianapolis. His son Christian is graduating from high school today, so a big congratulations from all of us to the Pericarpi family. And a little birdie told me we might see Christian driving one of these cars before the season is done.
You know someone.
Mm-hmm.
That would be cool.
It's all about knowing the right person. And Lewis himself, an accomplished driver. We've seen him racing in this series in the past, but has really turned out a great program there. And starting alongside him will be Eric Powell, part of the Skip Barber Racing School team. What a great initiative. You see TC America powered by Skip Barber Racing School, and that is more than just a sponsorship program. There's a lot of coaching that goes into this that extends into the paddock. It provides an opportunity for the Skip Barber School to bring its graduates through and into professional racing. And it's been a great symbiotic relationship over the last couple of seasons, and that continues here. And Eric Powell, part of the driving talent for them. He starts in fourth, and he was playfully giving me a hard time earlier. I guess in Sonoma, I made some mention about him getting a great start and jumping up to the lead when he had started from pole. Today he starts fourth, so if he ends up in the lead before the end of the first lap, I was right that time.
Yeah, there could be some fireworks on that second row because starting alongside Mark Pombo, they're both used to winning and having success, so let's wait and see what they can do against those 2 BMWs that have swept the front row for Auto Technic.
A couple other stories to keep an eye on. Jeff Rica starting back a little ways in his Gen Racer Hyundai. Had a great run at COTA. Starts in the 14th overall position, 8th in class. Might be seeing more of the TC spec cars from Hyundai that Jeff is in charge of helping to develop and distribute on behalf of Hyundai a little bit later in the season. That's an interesting prospect to say the least. But hey, you can see it lights off on the Lamborghini Urus safety car. The TCX field in the hands of the pole sitter, Jacob Rude out of the classic BMW stable. Steve Strymer from Hard Motorsport alongside. It's an all BMW M2 CS Cup field of 6 in TCX. There's the second pace car a little bit further behind. It will pull off, and 3 separate green flags to each of our classes. Waiting for the green to start this race, and they accelerate away. Great jump from Jacob Rude.
Yeah, he timed that nicely. Steve Strymer's probably looking sideways, where are you, mate? And suddenly he just takes off and grabs the lead initially.
Heard the great story about Chris Walsh and his father throwing the green flag. Got a chance to take a look at him up there in the flag stand. What a great view it is as the field starts to string out a bit into turn 1 for the first time. Clean start from TCX. Further back, still 2x2 through much of the TC field.
Yeah, it looks really a great battle there. And there you can see we talked about the battle from the second row. That's the Mini there in third. The black Mini just leading, Eric Powell in fourth.
And here is the TCA start with Michael Carter alongside PJ Gronke on the front row, able to take that pole and jump to the lead. And now under attack is Gronke. Caleb Bacon working his way around the outside, going to grab second spot.
Nice move there. A lot of confidence from that young man. He really just fired it in there, looking for the lead immediately into turn 4.
He's had a great start to this season.
Ooh, hits the curb hard there. Goes for a bit of a ride, just keeps it together. There's his teammate.
Luke Rumberg and the sister Forbush Performance Machine signaled the sponsor there. That's the TCA spec Hyundai. Then it is Toyota, Hyundai, Toyota, then Honda, the top four in TCA. Up at the front, Jacob Rude. Great start once again. Steve Strymer giving chase down Madison Avenue.
Yeah, had an advantage of about half a second in qualifying. He's putting that to use here immediately, just streaking away from this field. Pretty dominant performance so far this year from Jacob. See if any of these others can come together. Here's a nice little battle between Samantha Tan, and great to see Olivia Askew back. Did some TCR competition with us here last year.
Samantha qualified only 5th, but was able to make the jump there on Olivia Askew, who qualified 1 spot ahead. Wonderful to have Olivia back. I know she did some testing in the offseason, including in the GT3 car that her father, David Askew, races in Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. He feels like she's got the talent, but needs to own the racecraft, and this TCX class is a great place to do exactly that. Someone a little bit wide at the exit of Hogpen. What a great battle this is. Up and down the field, TC class mini trying to hold off the charge from Joe Federle. Another tech sport car, this time in the TC class.
Yeah, this Nissan is very strong, makes the move down to the inside. Made that look relatively easy.
Yes, he did. Started in 6th, able to make up another spot there up to 5th. So Pombo has actually dropped a couple of positions in that mini. He went from 3rd to 5th, and now to 6th after that move from Joe Federle.
Yeah, looked like he's struggling, but he's back on the pipe now. Looks like he's very quick there through turn 3, so I'm not sure if he had just a temporary issue with the race car technically. Had some issues. They made their debut at Coda. Didn't go the way they wanted. They show pace. Certainly looks strong, with just too many technical issues, which was really a baptism of fire. The car had never even run till it showed up there for that race weekend, so to be expected, having a few teething issues, but looks like a very strong competitor in that TC class.
Austin Smith leading at the moment in the TC class. Tom Capizzi runs 2nd. That's the car you look at here. Difference at the line, 1.7 seconds. Smith so far this season, a best finish of 3rd in the 2nd race at Sonoma. 4th in points coming into the weekend. Looking for that first win of the season. Still very early in this race, but has that advantage. Jake Rocky holding off a charge. I think that is Eric Powell behind him with perhaps some bodywork damage.
Yeah, certainly that rear bumper looks like it's hanging.
Bacon, the leader in TCA, with Michael Carter right behind. That's the car that Jesse Love has been driving so far this season. The Toyota development driver has ARCA commitments this weekend, but TRD has big-time stock car aspirations for Jesse. Wanted to see him get some road course racing experience and plugged him in, and problems here for one of the TCA minis. I think that is, I'm not sure actually. Apologies there. Possibly Derek Jones?
I think it's Derek, yeah. Some smoke coming from the left-hand side, so I have to wait and see what sort of issue that is. Long way back to pit lane from there.
Yeah, we'll keep tabs on that, but while we do that, let's get an update from pit lane on our TCA leader. Amanda?
Well, we were taking a look at Caleb Bacon off of that start. They actually had issues to kick off this weekend. They had to do a complete transmission swap. They lost 3rd gear yesterday into this morning. They were able to get the track on, or the car on the track for qualifying to get some data. They feel confident going into this race in where the car stands at the moment.
Thank you for that update. Good to know. We see that car of Bacon under attack, and so it looks like it was actually... My apologies to
Michael Carter there with the damage.
Yeah, my apologies. I think I assigned that to the wrong car, but it doesn't seem to be slowing him much. A couple of cars actually in line with some rear bodywork damage. The 4th place car in line also. Here's Kevin Boehm in the number 9 car, points leader coming in. Didn't have the greatest qualifying effort, but here he is trying to make up another spot. And he's got one of the DRS Garagistic cars up in front of him.
Yeah, and he gets around Pombo there. So Pombo's struggling a little bit for pace there. It seems at the end of any sort of longish straightaway, doesn't seem to quite have the power. Boehm just trying to patiently pick his way through this field. Our championship leader on basis of 2 wins out of the 4 race championship so far.
And running just ahead of the points leader, he is a debutant in the series, Matthew Ibrahim, part of the Garagistic DRS team. And he is the Garagistic in that team name. That's his company that he founded, basically trying to find a way to pay for his college education. He was working as a machinist and found a niche preparing parts for people's street cars and track cars and turned that into a business. And it's been a cool rise. Talking to him this weekend, his first pro race, he had no idea this was something that was accessible to someone like him, and happened to run into Chris Valdez, his co-owner of this team, while dynoing his street car, and they started talking to him and put this program together, and they're supposed to be in for the full season, just loving everything about it. Matthew, a really great attitude, big smile on his face every time I've seen him at the track this weekend. First time that he's ever been to VIR, but he's been loving every minute of it.
And he's going really well. To be running ahead of our championship leader is certainly a statement. And a great little battle ensuing here. This is a battle for 4th in the TCX class. Samantha Tan just leading Olivia Askew as they head up through the S's here. And they were separated by a mere 100th of a second in qualifying, and should be a good little battle here this afternoon.
Samantha Tan, amazing to say this. It does feel like she's relatively new to the scene, but by comparison, this is the veteran of the two, and she's been doing a ton of driving in recent years, and this year a lot of long-distance races in the 24-hour series in Europe, won her class at the 24 Hours of Dubai. She's been racing with this team over there. Sometimes it's a 3-driver lineup, sometimes 4, is what I've been told, and that's a lot of seat time. Great way to hone your craft.
Yeah, it really just builds a lot of confidence. It just becomes more natural rather than sort of like relearning this new trade that she's trying to learn here in race car driving. So certainly should be a benefit. She does a tremendous job, really rock solid. But Olivia, great to see her back. And I talking to some of the management team at DXTT, where her father owns and operates that team. Oh, we've gotten off here for Roy Block. It's coming down the roller coaster, I think.
Here, and that might be in hog pen. Looks like that's the case. Let's take a look at the replay. See if we can see what happened to Roy.
Just hits that inside curb, just gets a little bit wide out of the roller coaster. That's hog pin, that final corner. Got away with one there. Typically you spin out to the outside of the corner, but just manages to tuck it inside.
Yeah, my thoughts exactly, but you can see how much dirt and debris he brings back onto the track with him, and it's been a talking point this weekend. A couple of times it sounds like it's caught a few drivers out from a bunch of different series, all the way up to Lamborghini factory drivers perhaps being caught out by that.
Get back to Olivia Askew. The reason I think they've put her with Classic is it's a great team, certainly in terms of preparing race cars, but when she ran with David's team, a lot of pressure on her because you've got all of the team members like the Colin Browns and the Ryan Diaz, these superstar sports car drivers, sort of like, oh, how did it go and all of this. Extra pressure. I think putting her out with a different operation gives her a chance to breathe and kind of learn her trade a little bit more calmly, I think.
But she's not without the expert advice, because here this weekend is Brian Sellers, who's serving as her driver coach, an extremely accomplished racer, champion GT driver, has had a lot of success actually in this series, raced for K-Pax a couple of years back in a McLaren, if memory serves, and he's here to serve as a tutor, and she's been going to school.
Yes, he worked with her last year with the TCR machine, and then they took a bit of time off, and now she's come back. So, yeah, it's a great combination. They got all of the pieces in place.
Austin Smith, Tom Capizzi, first and second in TC, 6th and 7th overall. Smith still holds the lead from pole, putting together the best run of his season so far. Then we drop back, and here is Eric Powell. And let me see if there was some bodywork damage to that, or if that was somebody else. I think that was one of the TCA Skip Barber cars. So apologies there to you, Eric. Able to jump up one spot after qualifying 4th, but he's got a couple Tech Sport cars breathing down his neck. That's Rob Hines right behind in the yellow Nissan, and just behind is Joe Federo, the winner in this category in years past.
Good opportunity for Eric Powell here to make a little bit of hay in the championship. Kevin Boehm leads, but with him running down in 7th, it could be a good moment with Eric Powell running there a little bit sharper. Could make up some points here today.
And Rob Hines fending off a challenge from his teammate Joe Federo. Longtime club racer, has had some success, podiums at the SCCA runoffs over the years, actually won his class, the T2 class, all the way back in 1999, but he's been stout at times this year, a runner-up in the second race at Sonoma, a couple of 8th place finishes at Coda, and remember, one of those was in a driving rainstorm. That was a bizarre day weather-wise, and they had completely different conditions the next day. It was kind of a lottery for so many of those teams, so while we did have some rain earlier in the weekend, I think everyone is happy we've had relatively consistent weather start to finish here this weekend at VIR. It lets you kind of hone in on that setup a little bit.
It does, and I think there were a number of drivers in that field who had never really experienced rain driving at all, so to have those severe conditions for the first time was remarkable just to survive.
On timing and scoring, looks like Olivia Askew has made up a spot past Samantha Tan. We've been watching that battle earlier. This is Jacob Rude, who has won every race so far this season in TCX, won overall in all but one of those races, and the one exception was that rain race where we saw some front-wheel drive TC cars really storm upwards. But here are our Race Vision powered by AWS top speeds so far, and how about Olivia Askew, fastest speed, over 150 miles an hour in a touring car.
These are great cars, and they're not that far adrift from GT4 terminal speeds that we saw here earlier today, about 155, as I recall, with what we were seeing with the GT4 BMWs earlier today. So it's a nice gap between touring car and GT4, I think, in terms of the affordability as well as a great training ground for these drivers.
And this car was unveiled by BMW, speaking of the M2 CS, back in 2019. It was launched in Munich in December of 2019, basically as a successor to the extremely successful M240, which was first an M235, and then there was an upgrade package available to it that really changed the game in touring car racing by bringing turnkey racing to the everyman. It had been there with GT3 and GT4, where you could buy a race car ready to go off the shelf. That wasn't really available in the touring car ranks, but that car changed it, and it's changed the business model. We're starting to see more manufacturers embrace that as well. How about an update from the pit lane? Amanda, what have you found out?
Well, Ryan, you were talking about Brian Sellers as Olivia Askew's driver coach. He started working with Olivia last year, and as you come into VIR, what advice did you give her to prep for the weekend?
Well, it's difficult. I mean, she's been away for a year now. So the big thing we've just been working on is getting back in and just executing everything we've done. So we were lucky we had 2 test days here prior to the race, and we worked on speed and those things. And once we came back, it was kind of moving forward to the race and making sure we just try and use all the information we gained and applied it forward. So she's a smart girl. She's super competitive, and we're just trying to get it all figured out and move forward race by race. So right now she's doing a great job. It's super hot, and so we're just trying to keep her calm right now. It's easy to overexert yourself in these conditions. So there's a long time left. Just tell her to kind of take it easy and work a little bit at a time.
What are you seeing from her so far that you like?
Well, this weekend she's been fantastic at being able to apply the things we've worked on, which I think really shows a big progression in the driving. You know, it's one thing to be able to go out and do a number. It's another thing to be able to apply the things you need to do to go fast. So, you know, what you really look for is the understanding to continue to improve and to be able to apply the things that she needs to, and she's done that so far.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks.
What a great coach to have in your corner, and whatever he's saying, it's working, because Olivia Askew has run down Chris Walsh over the last few laps. That last lap was marginally quicker. The prior lap was a half a second faster than Walsh, and we've got a battle on our hands. This is for third in TCX. Now we take a look back in the TCA field. And that's Bacon.
Leader Bacon has the lead.
That is out-of-class traffic coming through.
Some TC machinery coming through there.
Yep.
It's Carter there running in the second position, the red and white car with the bodywork issue on the tail.
Currently second class, split by a couple of TC class cars that appear to have had some problems. Adam Harding is in that BMW just up ahead. Shizniak in the Honda that came through a few moments before. Then we drop back to PJ Gronke, who is working on holding off Luke Rumberg in that Hyundai. It's in the slipstream, and he's closing in.
Yeah, they look strong here. Hyundais are certainly strong down those straightaways, so we're trying to take that advantage on the two stretches that you have here to really utilize it.
Oh, some buttons off. I think that's Shishizniak able to rejoin right behind this group, but that kicked up a huge cloud of dust for the rest of the TCA field to drive through. And here we go, side by side. Rumberg trying to make his way around Gronke. And for the moment, PJ Gronke, ex-TCB champion, back when, in fact, the final season where TCB was a class in what was then Pirelli World Challenge. PJ came out on top.
He just loves his racing. It just doesn't seem to matter what you throw his way. Any adversity, he just bounces back with a big smile and keeps digging.
And he's got a full-time day job that pays for his racing, but it also means, because he's based in Canada, he's had some interesting travel experiences. The SRO America staff have been able to help him, he was telling me, get basically the waiver available for high-level athletes to get it in and out of the country without having to quarantine. So that's been a big help for him. But there are still extra precautions you have to go through at the moment when traveling from Canada to the States. And I'll be working a long day and might get a couple hours of sleep and then have to get up extra early because it takes that long just to get through immigration on the front end in Canada to try and get to the States, but nothing's going to keep him away. As soon as it became a possibility, last year he did have to miss some races, but as soon as it became a possibility, whatever hoop he needed to jump through, he was ready to do it.
Yeah, and that's really a testimony to his dedication to the sport, and it is complex with travel, and it's not always consistent with all respect to the authorities, what you're going to arrive at the airport and how you're going to get through. So he'll just do whatever it takes, as you said, and great that he's been here on a more consistent basis this year as the world starts to open up a little bit. Certainly great to see spectators here for the first time in a while, Ryan. So it certainly adds to the spice of the event.
Back to the TCA fight. Eric Powell holds the final podium position in the TC class. He's got Rob Hines breathing down his neck. It's been a good weekend for Tech Sport, as you would hope here on home soil. Again, the shop is based here at VIR, but both in TCA, where they've got cars, a couple of cars in the top four. Similar story here, with Rob Hines out of the Tech Sports stable. Just behind him, Joe Federo, a teammate, running just outside of podium contention.
Yeah, and as I said, for Powell, this could be a big points payday for him, with Boehm still seeming to struggle. He really hasn't made up a lot of ground. His lap time seemed quite a bit off the leaders right now, so he's got some kind of issues. He did say that he's a bit concerned with that car. When you have hot days like this, that you've really got to manage getting clean air. Oh, there's a wheel off. Tell which car that is.
Strange to happen this deep into a run. I wonder if it's like a wheel bearing, perhaps. A lot of smoke coming out of that wheel well. Wow.
Yeah, that's quite the ride there. He went straight in an area of the racetrack where there's plenty of runoff room.
That was Kurt Washeim, by the way, in the second Gin Racer entry. Teammate to Jeff Rico, who we were talking about earlier. And that car, I'm trying to decide, is that a perilous position? I feel like it might be. And it's not going to be moving on its own, so we might be seeing a full course yellow. For now, though, we stay green, nearing the halfway mark. This race flies by, just 40 minutes, but you have to love the all-out attack. That's the attitude you have to have in these TC America powered by Skip Barber races. No pit stops, no driver changes, just full bore from green flag to checker.
Yep, great little battle here is continuing. Rumberg there having a really good run. For the second of the two signal entries, his teammate continues to lead up front from Carter.
So I think that would be possibly a change in position in the next couple of laps with Rumberg now around PJ Gronke. See what he can do. Trying to chase down his teammate, who is the class leader, Calvin. Spot on, with Michael Carter right behind. Just past the halfway mark. TC overall top speeds. Gives you an idea. We saw the TCX top speeds earlier, what the difference is between the two classes.
Yeah, just shy of 145 miles an hour there, 143s. I think we saw 144 earlier this weekend. So they're right there. So it's certainly the nice gapping. We saw the TCX machines, 150. We saw GT4 cars earlier in the race, the Sprint X race today. Full course yellow is out for that car that's stranded over towards Oak Tree Corner. So this will be a little bit of a reset.
Well, certainly in TCX it will, as Jacob Rude's 8-second lead has gone away. Steve Strymer will close up because of this full course yellow. We've got Walsh and Askew. They were running within a half second of each other for third. That will close up and bring Samantha Tan into the mix. That is your TCX top 5. Then you get to Austin Smith and Tom Capizzi, who are pretty close together anyway. Brings Eric Powell back into the frame, Rob Hines, Joe Federle. And I think it also gives a new shot here to Kevin Boehm, who has been stalled out in 7th, and I wonder what a restart might do for his chances of trying to get back up and get a couple more spots before it's all over.
Yeah, he'll certainly be digging as hard as he can. He doesn't seem to have the lap time of the leaders, certainly, but the Badger car's right in front of him. He's within a couple of 3/10 of their fastest lap, so maybe he can do something with it. And he's pretty savvy, he's pretty patient, he's pretty poised in terms of his approach to races, but he will not be content with sitting down in 7th. And I think sitting there and Powell in 3rd, that would cost him the championship lead overnight at least.
Saw the replay a moment ago of what happened to Kurt Washeim. I thought maybe a bearing, hearing some speculation, maybe it was a wheel that gave way. Did you pick up on anything based on what we saw?
I couldn't tell, but I thought there was a wheel that had taken off from the race car. But
yeah. Well, at any rate, looks like day done early, unfortunately, for that car. Felt like Kurt, let's take a look at it again. The wheel definitely separated. Kurt had finishes of 11th and 13th in his first weekend at COTA.
I couldn't see any sort of stub axle hanging on to that, so it was like it just sheared off at the studs.
Well, Lamborghini Urus back out. Talked about it at the start. In the initial start, 2 different safety cars for all the classes. For restarts, it will just be the one, and there is, at the discretion of the stewards, if they feel like they can get it done quickly enough, they will try and do a class split to bring the classes together and not be separated by out-of-class traffic. But it really is, as they explained at the drivers' meeting, dependent on how quickly they think they can get that job done. So no guarantees made to anyone as far as that goes.
Yeah, and what you really don't want to have happen here is that suddenly you're splitting the class leaders. You could have a TCA car, for example, just in front of the lead pack and the second place car just behind the safety car, and that effectively costs you a lap. So they try and straighten everything out to give everyone a fair shot at getting back to racing and resuming a battle for the lead that may have been a couple of seconds but could suddenly become a lap by being split by the overall leaders.
See the flatbed dispatched there to go track down the stranded car. It's been a great project. Jeff Rica and company have been working so hard on that TC spec Hyundai over the last couple of years. I think we first saw it in the paddock at the end of 2019 and then racing some last year, and now looking to expand into customer sales of that car. And while Brian Herta Autosport is so involved with the TCR car and also the TCA car, Jeff Rica has been entrusted by Hyundai to be, and his shop, to be the ones behind the TC car and creating more of them and selling them to customers and providing the support, which speaks volumes for the amount of faith that Hyundai has put into that program.
And it's just taken a lot of hard work over the years for Jeff to prove himself like that. I mean, a testimony to how much determination he has in this sport, and small team, but very dedicated, a lot of expertise there, and a great driver. He actually had a bit of an accident here a couple of years ago, I think it was, where he was out of action for a while, so great to see him return to the venue of somewhere that's not been kind to him in the past.
Yep, I think that's right. I did get an update from Amanda in the pit lane. She checked in with the Gin Racer team. They believe it was a wheel stud failure that caused that problem. Something you see all that frequently, quite frankly.
No. Use the curbs here quite a bit. So again, with the early days of a new car, maybe it's a weak point that is certainly highlighted here. You come up through those S's, you're pounding those curbs pretty hard through the course of this lap here. So maybe it's just a weak point. Maybe they can strengthen it up, but certainly going to be a concern for Jeff Rica and for that team tomorrow if they don't have anything on site to beef them up.
Jacob Rude your overall leader, Steve Strymer, behind. And you made mention of the fact that he did not score any points in TCX back at Sonoma, but he was actually there. He was racing in the TC class, but got the opportunity to step into a TCX car and seems to be enjoying himself. He's had a nice run thus far. Maybe hasn't had the outright pace that Jacob has displayed so far, but he's kept him in his sights. And on this reset here, when we go back to green, don't discount Steve Strymer, who's been at this for a couple of years now. Debuted in professional racing in 2019 and has just been working his way back up ever since.
Yeah, when he has his day, it's normally a big day. I mean, he's had some wins over the course of the years, and some days he's just hard to beat. But very consistent competitor, loves his racing. Just he and his wife really enjoy being here at the racetrack.
Actually, misspoke. It was Hard Motorsport that made its professional debut a couple of years back. Steve's been at it. He's done some Trans Am racing a time or two, some club races as well, but stepped into Pirelli World Challenge TCA with Tech Sport, actually, back in 2016. Did a couple of races out in Utah in a Mazda MX-5 alongside a partial Trans Am schedule, but has been a stalwart in the series over the last few years, racing as a teammate for a long time to Johann Schwartz, who we certainly miss in this paddock, former champion and always a threat for a race win in a TC car, it does seem. But that was with Brewster Hall Racing back in 2019. Joined the Hard Motorsport team again, driving with Johann some last year for a couple of races. In fact, right here at VIR, I think the only two races that Steve did a year ago. And then back at it this year. It seems to have found a nice home in the TCX machine.
Obviously a strange year last year with COVID, and a lot of people just electing to step out until things settled down and became a bit more normal in terms of returning to the paddock. So certainly all respect for that, but great to see him back this year full time.
Despite not racing in this class at Sonoma, he did come into the weekend fifth, tied for fifth in points, 73 points back, had a fourth and a third at Circuit of the Americas. Certainly looks to have the pace strong enough to run for a podium finish, Steve Strymer. But how about Chris Walsh right behind in third? First pro race, got the dad here to wave the green flag, and on a weekend in which the military is being supported, how about an active duty Air Force officer joining us in the race car? Especially, we had a big flyover earlier today for the GT World Challenge race, and there's been so much pomp and circumstance surrounding the military, and he's certainly representing them quite well, running in podium contention in his first race.
Yeah, and I think the two drivers right behind him will certainly respect all of that, but you know they want to steal that podium away. So Olivia Askew sits there in fourth, Samantha Tan, two very strong competitors and cars right now.
Lights are off on the safety car. Does not look like we'll get a class split here. We're about to turn them loose with 11 minutes to go. Jacob Ruud leads. A couple of lap cars, it appears, between himself and Steve Strymer, the next car in line as far as TCX is concerned, and Jacob hits the loud pedal, takes the green flag, and roars with the field in tow into turn one. And look at this mixed class action fan out behind him.
Oh, this is
big
roll.
That is a wild ride. Is that the Mini?
Could be Pombo.
And we go full course yellow once again. Well, that's what happens when you sometimes get the speed disparities of these mixed classes, and we all hold our breath as that car went for a tumble. Everyone needs to get this sorted out. We are under full course yellow here.
Quite a bit of rain here, so if you do have an off there coming on the front straightaway, the wheels can dig in if you're sideways and maybe just tipped him over. Hopefully he's okay.
As soon as we have any kind of firm update, we will pass that along, but we will not speculate. 10 minutes to go, full course yellow once again. It does look like Pombo was at least one of the cars involved in that accident. And that's just the second race weekend for the new Mini. Jacob Ruud, you see up at the front of this train, but look how mixed up this field is. And coming to that green flag, you can't gain position until you get to the start-finish line. It's unlike the initial start in that way. And trying to judge acceleration when you've got cars with different capabilities in that line. You don't necessarily know who's around you. That can make it very complicated.
It can, adds to the fabric of the race, certainly, and can make it very exciting, but probably too exciting at this point in time for that initial restart.
Red flag has been displayed on the back straightaway. So Jacob Rude, Steve Strymer, Chris Walsh, 1, 2, 3 in TCX. Because of everything that has happened, it's like Austin Smith, Tom Capizzi, Eric Powell, 1, 2, 3 in TC. Caleb Bacon. And our debut driver, Michael Carter, first and second in TCA. But the clock continues to roll here with red flag conditions displayed. If you're just joining us, big accident just a few moments ago on a restart.
Just seeing some questions pop up on the timeline before this restart, with a lot of touring car teams asking, can they pass TCA cars before the stripe? So, you know, that is not allowed, but, you know, maybe there's some confusion amongst the field, but just conjecture at this point.
Well, my question to you, and you read the rule book closer than I do, I confess, is the wording you cannot advance a position?
No, you cannot pass.
Just cannot pass. Okay. Well, that makes that quite simple. Chris Valdez here in one of the DRS Garagistic cars. Great to have him back in the series after several years away. Spent quite a bit of time racing in Pirelli World Challenge touring cars about a decade ago, and has made some sporadic appearances since then, but found this opportunity along with Matthew Ibrahim to go racing once again. But red flag here with just 7 minutes left. It looks like this is how this race, unfortunately, will end as we all hold our breath for an update after a very serious accident just a few moments ago. For the drivers that see that, what does that do to the psyche? Everyone who straps in a race car, you're putting on fireproof equipment, you put on a crash helmet. You know that you do everything you can from a safety perspective, and the series does as well. But in the back of your mind, everyone knows there is an inherent risk. And when you see something of this magnitude, how does that affect you?
Well, there's immediate concern, particularly because it was quite a violent flip there, so some of the field may have seen that, some may not, just be getting that word from the crew in terms of there's a big accident on this front straightaway. So the first thing you're looking for is some positive news that the driver's out and he is okay. You're very competitive in terms of getting back to racing, but it's all about racing as a family, so you've obviously got concern for everyone involved.
So the red flag has come out. The checkered has been displayed as well. It will be a subdued finish to race one of the weekend for TC America, powered by the Skip Barber Racing School. Let's take a look at what will be the final results from today's race. Jacob Rude, Steve Strymer, 1 and 2 in TCX. It's yet another win, keeping his win streak alive for Jacob. Has not finished any position other than first so far this season. Steve Strymer in second, as mentioned. Chris Walsh, great debut for him to finish in third. Olivia Askew, Samantha Tan, the rest of the top 5 in TCX. Then down to the TC field, where Austin Smith picks up his first win of the season. Tom Capizzi will finish second. Eric Powell, a podium result in third. Then Tech Sport Car, Rob Hines, and Matthew Ibrahim on debut, a 5th place result in TC. Look at the rest of field there, down to 15th overall. Winner in TCA, Caleb Bacon. Michael Carter, strong debut for the former Spec Miata racer, stepping up into touring car racing. Filligan for Jesse Love here this weekend, finishes in second in TCA. Then Luke Rumberg, the final driver on the podium for the Forbush Performance team. BJ Gronke in fourth, Carter Fartuk, nice drive to get up into fifth. Well, let's take a look at the highlights of the race. That was the green flag some 40 minutes ago. Jacob Brood led the field to the green. TCX field with the initial start, then back here to the TC field. Some good battles up and down through this pack of cars. But I saw Austin Smith from pole able to pull away over Tom Capizzi, and he held that lead really from the get-go.
He did, and Eric Powell's a man on the move early. Picked up a lot of ground. Then we see the TCA field heading down into turn 1, led by those 2 Toyotas.
Great start from Caleb Bacon, started third on the grid, was able to pick up 1 spot right away, ultimately did drive his way up to the lead. He is your race winner. This was a minor incident for Roy Block, got away with this one at Hog Pen. Able to continue on. And here, great battling throughout this field in TC. Yellow Nissan giving chase to Eric Powell in the Honda just up ahead. And here we had a bit of a wild ride there from Zhizniak. Able to get back on track. This brought out our first full course yellow, Calvin, an issue for Kurt Washeim.
Yeah, and that stacked the field back up, unfortunately, and that's when we ultimately got to the incident that was red flagged this race. But there's some great battles throughout this field here today.
And there you see the field coming back down pit lane after the red flag was displayed. Well, we send our best wishes to all involved in the accident. And for now, we will sign off from VIR. Jacob Brood, winner overall, TC America Race 1 of the weekend.